Okay, chapter 7 of 1 Kings, verse 1. Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. The last two verses of chapter 6. In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid. In the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts of it, and according to all the fashion of it, so was he 7 years in building it. But 2 Chronicles chapter 8 verse 1 2 Chronicles 8:1 says that at the end of 20 years he had finished building his own house. So if he spent 13 years, 7 plus 13 is 20 years. So he didn't even start his own house till he finished the temple. Yeah. Okay, now we know Solomon reigned 40 years, right? It tells us that someplace. Where is it?
He was done building the house of the Lord and his own house in his 24th year of reign.
Yeah.
So he's building year 61.
It says in chapter 9:30 that he reigned in Jerusalem in all 40 years. Yeah, 24 plus 16 is 40, right? So the last 16 years of his reign, he went downhill. 24 good ones. I never actually got it that specific before. I always thought it was about 20 years through, but it's actually 24. It could have even been 30 years. He could have, all the accomplishments that it says he did in chapter 8, which we'll get to, when he was taking over territory, he was building cities here and there and everywhere. He could have been busy for another 5 years before he started to stray badly. So, could have been 30 years. It could have been just the last 10 years of his life.
Wow, he writes all these.
Well, I think that he wrote his Proverbs and spoke all those extra Proverbs, first during that 24 years, because I think that he was walking with God during that time. But Ecclesiastes had to have been written after his defection. It had to have been towards the end of his life. I think he was writing it as an old man. Because there's such an emphasis in Ecclesiastes on death and old age, stuff like that, bitterness. He looks back on all his building. 1 Kings 11 tells us that after the temple was filled, that there came a point when Solomon did fall into idolatry, and Jerusalem remained the center of worship, but became a polyglot. Not a polyglot, polytheistic center of worship. First Kings 11 verses 7 and 8. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem. Boy, is that ever interesting. And for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his foreign wives, who burn incense and sacrifice to their gods. I'd like to know what hill that was. I wonder if it was the hill Golgotha. Eh? Or whether it was the Mount of Olives. Which hill is he talking about? It would be interesting to see, eh?
He was wise enough, so wisdom doesn't keep it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the center of worship. it remained, after Solomon's, the center of worship always remained in Jerusalem, at least for Judah. Not so for the tribes to the north, but it was finally, God finally dwelt personally in Jerusalem. Not until the days of Solomon. Only lasted 24 years, quarter of a century. Now the battles of Solomon, compared to David, very few. 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 to 46, we have Solomon consolidating his kingdom with the killing of 3 particular individuals. I already mentioned to you that it was Benaiah that did that. Verse 25, King Solomon sent by the hand of Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he fell and he died. That was Adonijah. And chapter 2, verse 34, so Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up and fell on Joab and slew him, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. Killed him right in the tabernacle. And verse 46, so the king commanded Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, who went out and fell on Shimei, that he died. And the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. So the first battle was consolidation. Chapter 8, after Solomon had... I'm thinking of First Chronicles. Second Chronicles. Second Chronicles chapter 8, verse 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 tells us that Solomon fought against Hamath Zobah. I read that in 1 Kings chapter 9, but it doesn't indicate in 1 Kings that he actually fought against it. But here it says that he went up and prevailed against it. So he did have military campaigns up north. In Lebanon, Hamath Zobah is Lebanon. And this was before his sin. After he sinned, in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 14, we have his battles for his sins, just like his father had fought for his sins. God raised up Hadad the Edomite, who is said to have done mischief as an adversary to Solomon. Hadad the Edomite to the south. That's 1 Kings 11:14. God also raised up Rezon of Syria to the north. 1 Kings 11:23 to 25. It says that he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon. And not only north and south, but right in the middle, right within the kingdom, God raised up Jeroboam in 1 Kings 11:26 to 40. 11:26 to 40, God raised up Jeroboam. It says Jeroboam lifted up his hand against the king. And he ultimately fled to Egypt. And if you read 1 Kings chapter 11, it was specifically because of Solomon's sin. 1 Kings 11:11. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, Forasmuch as this is done by you, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely tear the kingdom away from thee, and will give it to my servant. However, he wouldn't do it while Solomon lived, but afterwards. Right, so Solomon's battles. He fought a few battles before, although he didn't have to spend much time fighting. He spent most of his life building. But once he blew it and became an idolater, he spent a lot more time fighting. Interesting principle, huh? Towns and territories of Solomon's kingdom. He made alliances with Egypt and with Phoenicia. 1 Kings 3:1 and 5:1. It says he reigned over all Israel from Dan to Beersheba in chapter 4, verses 1 to 20. 1 Kings 4, verses 1 to 20, and also verse 25, from Dan to Beersheba. In the 4th chapter, in these 20 verses, it actually divides Solomon's kingdom into 12 districts. And one of your maps has that. The last map that you got under the Davidic kingdom numbers those districts. See if the numbering there on that last map, the Westminster Historical Atlas, see if that map corresponds with these references. 1 Kings 4:8, the first district was Mount Ephraim. That match? North of Bethel. That fits. Chapter 4, verse 9 is Makaz. It mentions a couple of other towns along with that. Makaz, Sheal-Beam, and Beth Shemesh. Beth Shemesh is one of those former Philistine towns. Remember, that's one of the places that the Ark of the Covenant had gone to. Remember that? So that's to the west, and that's where they place it, west of Jerusalem. So the second district was in former Philistine country to the west. District 3 is in Aruboth. Chapter 4, verse 10. Solomon said a fellow by the name of Ben-Kesev in Aruboth, to whom pertained Soko and all the land of Hepher. Soko. That has to be he's got it north of Shechem. I thought Soko was southwest of Jerusalem. Do you have a map with Soko on it? Where is it?
Up above the Philippines. Directly west of Shechem.
Right here. Okay, so that's District 3. I'm just going to make a note of that. District 2 is west of Jerusalem. Aruboth is west of Shechem. Okay, region number 4 is said to have been the region of Dor, which is on the coast. That fits. Division 5, chapter 4, verse 12 says, Solomon put a fellow by the name of Baana, the son of Ahilud, over Taanach and Megiddo and Beth Shan, below Jezreel, to Abel Maholah, to beyond Jokneam. So that's division 5 was north of just southwest of Galilee. Taanach was in that mountain range that runs right along the purple line there. Okay, to the north, southwest of Galilee. Okay, division 6, chapter 4, verse 13, Ramoth Gilead. Okay, that's east of Galilee. Mahanaim is southeast of Galilee. Division 8 is in Naphtali. That's north of Galilee. Asher, the 9th division, northwest of Galilee. Issachar, the 10th division, is east of Carmel. Benjamin is northeast of Jerusalem. And Gilead is northeast of the Dead Sea. So these are the 12 divisions over all Israel that Solomon put individual Jews over. Chapter 4, verse 21, and this chapter says that Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. Verse 24 says he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river from Tiphsah even to Gaza, and he had peace on all sides round about. Where is Tiphsah? You know? That's an important...
Same divisions that David had?
No, David didn't divide his kingdom up like this.
His empire gave Solomon that he didn't divide it.
David established the borders and Solomon organized into divisions or districts or whatever. You know where Tiphsah is? It's on the Euphrates River. Way up north. That's 4:21 and 24. 1 Kings 4:21 and 24. From Tiphsah.
need a copy of yours.
We're almost done. Then you can have your fix. So the whole country, verse 25, 1 Kings 4:25, had peace. Whole country had peace. Solomon did building all over the country. 1 Kings chapter 9, verses 15 to 24. Says that he built verse 15 is kind of an interesting verse. He built the house of the Lord and his own house and Milo and the wall of Jerusalem. So he extended the walls of Jerusalem during his reign. Right? Plus Hazor, which is way up north. That's northwest of Galilee. He built Megiddo. By the way, they have discovered the stalls. King Solomon's they discovered they've actually recovered the buildings that they think that he put his horses in Megiddo. That's like 10th century before Christ. That's old stuff. And Gezer was formerly a Philistine town in the north borders of Gaza, to the very north. And it says that the king of Egypt came up there and totaled that town and gave it to Solomon as a gift. And the only reason he would do that is because Solomon was married to his daughter. Right? So it was a dowry, more or less. Okay? So Solomon promptly took it over and rebuilt it. Verse 17, he built Gezer plus Lower Beth Horon, which is southeast of Gezer, Baalath and Tamar. And then it says he built storage cities, verse 19, and chariot cities and cavalry cities, cities for his horsemen. It says he built in Jerusalem and in Lebanon and in all the land of his dominion. So he built and built and built and built. Kind of goes along with Ecclesiastes too. Have you ever read that? He said, I built according to all the desire of my heart, he said, anything I wanted to do. The interesting thing that I just want to close on tonight about the territory of Solomon is that he had peace in the whole country. He organized the whole country. And Jews ran the whole country. And non-Jews that were survivors of David's wars were forced to do conscript labor. It says that here. And all the people, verse 20 and 21, who were left of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, who were not of the children of Israel, their children who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able utterly to destroy, of those did Solomon conscript for forced labor, and so unto this day. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no slaves, but they were men of war, and his servants and his princes and his captains and rulers of his chariots and horsemen. And they were the leaders of the officers. 550 who ruled the people. So 550 Jews ran the country. Or at least did the building anyway, over his work. I don't know what he means that. Okay, so that's 9, 20 to 23. 550 Jews controlled forced labor in the whole country. Yeah, it's about.
What's that name about Hiram didn't like really digging? Did you notice it?
Where's that?
Or did you say city good?
Yeah. Then King Solomon gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee.
Where is that on it?
9:11. He called them the land of Kabul. Joshua 19:27.
It's a big city, it's not.
I don't know. But it says in verse 14 that Hiram sent to the king 120 talents of gold. He probably felt like you better just keep this guy happy. You know. I think maybe I should mention one other thing before I quit, and that is that Solomon had a navy on the Red Sea at Ezion Geber. This is 1 Kings 9:26-28. And it says that Hiram he manned that navy along with the Jews, since they went and they got gold from Ophir. Interesting. So that shows you the kind of territory that Solomon had control over anyway, and what the nature of his kingdom was. So next class we'll pick up with the divided kingdom. Maybe we can finish that. That's it for tonight, I guess.